And what's the gross rents?
Gross, 40,000 a month.
40,000 a month?
If you haven't seen the TikTok that went off where I interviewed her about her assisted living facility, and that went viral, and it's interesting, and that really sparked this podcast episode because there were so many questions that were in the comments, and so many people don't actually know what happened. If you want to see that TikTok, I'll show it in a little bit. But Faye, for those who don't know you yet, what's the quick background on you, and what does your real estate portfolio look like?
I am actually a registered nurse by trade. That's what I do. I've been working as a hospice RN for 10 years now. I moved here, migrated here from the Philippines when I was 21, and then got married, got a family, got into real estate like everyone else, Googling, this isn't for me. I shouldn't be going back to work after being on maternity leave for 3 months. I found bigger pockets and then went from there, thinking assisted living facility, real estate would be a good marriage between what I do and what I'm trying to do. I know it was a huge task, but I was up for the challenge, and then that's where I started. So we house hacked. The first house was on that TikTok video. That was the first house that we bought, and then just moved into short-term rentals after, instead of scaling the assisted living facility because COVID and all those challenges. So I thought maybe doing SDRs would be much better. So I partnered up and bought 2 short-term rentals this year. And then we just closed on another house that we're going to house hack that has a main house and then an ADU that we're hoping to be midterm rent rather than short-term rent. And that's it. So we have 4.
I like it. So you have this living care facility, 2 short-term rentals. Are they both in Joshua Tree?
One's in Joshua Tree and one's in Coachella.
And you also have an Airstream, which I think is super cool that you rent out. When did you get started?
I got started in 2019. That's when we closed on that first property. I bought that in September 2019. Then it took a little bit for the renovations, for the licensing for the assisted living facility. It was a slow start. And while I was doing that, I have a 9-month-old and I was pregnant too.
So before we dive into the assisted living facility, just so the viewers have context, let's just share the TikTok, the fun, controversial TikTok.
That means you're making over $100,000 a year on this one deal. And you didn't want to post about it? That's amazing. What's the first deal and what were the numbers?
I bought a single family home, bought it for $765. My down payment was $26,500. And then I turned it into an assisted living facility. I lived in that property during renovations. Now it's a business.
So then how many bedrooms?
It's 6 bedrooms.
And what's the gross rents?
Gross, 40,000 a month.
40,000 a month?
It's a living care facility.
What are the expenses? What's the overhead?
There's a lot of overhead. So just for payroll is half of that.
Okay.
20 grand is payroll. In a good month, gross about 30% of that 40.
So then that means you're making $12,000 a month.
But if we have some turnovers, then we'll be good with a 15%.
So you're making $6,000 a month on a bad one, $9,000 a month on average. That means you're making over $100,000.
Okay, so first off, this is why this was so fun. I remember posting it, and then 2 days later, it hit the TikTok algorithm. And if you look at the views here, there's only 564,000 views.
Wow.
There's 3,700 shares. There is 36,000 likes on it, and then a lot of conflicting comments, which is really what prompted me to try and create a platform to where hopefully we can spread a little bit of education on this topic. Nursing homes and assisted living facilities, are they different?
They are different. And I feel like people think that it's all the same, which you did,
I
but
did.
I didn't want to. There's different levels. There's different tiers. So the hospital, a skilled nurse facility, and then the assisted living facility, which can be big boxes, like apartment complex kind of looking space. And they have caregivers there. They have some nurses. And then you have the residential assisted living facility, which is like my home in a neighborhood. And there's also like independent living facilities too.
So there's a lot of different types. And actually, maybe mistitling it helped with its virality, right? Because then people obviously want to correct anything that's wrong. So
True.
in that sense. What made you even want to get into that type of industry? Why did you become a nurse? And then why did you want to open up your own assisted living facility?
Why did I become a nurse? I feel like That's a question that we have to ask our culture too. If you know Filipino, they're probably all nurses. My mom is actually a nurse. My sister's a nurse. Just was brought,
Everyone's a nurse in your
yeah,
family.
brought up into that, yeah, whole culture. So everyone's a nurse. But going into hospice nursing was a little different. I worked at a hospital for just a little bit. I was thinking like working with babies would be what's for me. No, that's not what I wanted to do. So when I transitioned into hospice and then have been visiting board and care facilities is what they call it. That's like the general term. I like to call it residential assisted living just
Okay.
because it feels more sophisticated. Going back to your question, why did I go into this industry? I worked as a hospice nurse. I go into these homes every single day. I see the quality of care that they give. I see the quality that I can probably live and I could do a better job taking care of these residents or a better job being a boss to the employees. So I just challenged myself. I want to get into real estate. What would be the best way of doing this and using my skill to that?
And did you know anyone else who had this type of facility? Once you decided that, did you now just go on a big Google rabbit hole?
I went into that big Google rabbit hole, but at the same time, since I've been going into facilities, I've met some of the owners and had conversations with them, asked them questions of how you started and how is it doing for you. But for the most part, a lot of searching through Google, which you can't really find much. Residential Assisted Living Association with Jean Guarino. I think that's the most popular and the platform that gives a lot of information about it. And everything else I just figured out on my own.
Gotcha. Okay, let's tour this. So let me share the screen again. And so, as you can tell, we have there's a few thousand or a few hundred comments here, and a lot of them are interesting. So if you want to have an interesting look at keyboard warriors, I suggest you look into this TikTok. And most people, you made a beautiful home and a beautiful facility. So this is it, right? Where is this again? What city?
This is in Concord, California.
This is cuter than other facilities that I've seen, that's for sure.
For
Was there like a
me,
certain size that you wanted?
yeah, it was more of something that's bright and airy. It's really what I wanted to bring because I've been to a lot of places where it's dark and drabby and just depressing, I guess, when you come in there. So I wanted to just have something that's airy. So that was really the main focus for the house.
Yeah, and it's updated. And this is my own ignorance of really not really understanding this industry and business model. So there's different levels of assisted living facility. And because of your background as a hospice nurse, that was one that you chose to go into as it just relates most into your own professional experience. What about in terms of, we placated that you could that there is some return on your money, of course, because it's still a business. But why did you pick that type of assisted living? I don't know what the category is called, but why did you pick that type? Is it just because that's your background?
It is because it is my background, but also out there, starting off with bigger pockets, there's a lot of information about house hacking, and I just thought that it was quite genius to just put those together. And people also controversial, and people didn't believe like 26,500. She's probably not telling the truth, or that's not really the down payment. But I had a pretty good loan. It's not FHA, just to clear that out too. It's a Cal Half a loan. That was the out of pocket that I had, but there's two more loans. There's a second and a third loan. One is at 0% interest, and one is, I think, at 3% interest fixed. And you only need to pay that when you refinance or when you sell the house.
What is that loan? So is it just something based off of you building a care facility? Is that?
No, because we were going to live in it too. So it was because of the zip code, I think, and for some reason that zip code, what was the explanation there? There was a certain criteria of the price of the house in the zip code, and it just fell into that category. So we were able to qualify for that. type of loan where there's a second and a third loan, kind of like a down payment assistance
Yeah.
and closing cost assistance
Yeah.
for the second and the third loan.
Gotcha. No, I think there's definitely a lot of those programs. And I think what's really unique about what you did is house hacking is really cool and hot right now, just also because prices of housing is so much. And so to be able to actually
Mm-hmm.
subsidize it is important. And you took your professional background, mixed with house hacking, mixed with these local down payment assistance programs to then stack all of these to basically set your family up. Was that the ultimate goal? Is if we do this one thing, it could generate into a nest egg that could really help us. Was that like the ultimate goal?
Yeah, that was the ultimate goal for me. It was more of like flexibility at time because then I had a little one and then I was pregnant with a second one. So I'm like, I don't want to be working 12-hour shifts or 5 days a week. And if I can set myself up for this, even though it's going to be very challenging in the beginning, I will be able to spend more time with the kids and have some income and maybe adding on my W-2 and just working 2 days a week or something like that. So that was the goal for me in the beginning.
Gotcha. Okay. And then maybe to just paint the picture a little bit more, if someone was interested, saw the TikTok, right? 500,000 people saw the TikTok and thinking, all right, like how could I potentially get started? What would you even need?
I guess I could speak with California because it's different with other states, different rules. And I would say too, if you're gonna do it, and if you're not in California, if you're in Arizona or Texas, those are like the best states to start an assisted living facility because it's more controlled here. We can only have 6 residents. But going back to your question, what would you need? You don't really need a nursing background, which is, I think it's sad because you're caring for these 6 elderly residents and you don't need to know anything about nursing or anything clinically. You don't have to have that experience. So you just have to be like a high school graduate, I think, and do 60 hours of class to get an administrator license in California. So 60 hours. And they do background checks and
You need to hire a
other
nurse, though?
what's that?
Would you need to hire a nurse? Say you're the administrator, you're running the facility. Would you need to hire one? Or is that depending on
No,
obviously the level of facility that you're running?
not necessarily. Like even in California, and which is crazy to me too, and that's why I was saying like one of the main reasons why I started this was so I can make a difference and give a better quality of care to at least 6 people is because anyone can run it. Anyone can open one. All you need is 60 hours and go through that licensing process
Yeah.
and then start getting patients. You're in charge of giving medications to them, even though of course you have to follow doctor's orders and such, but you're there. So
It's interesting.
you can just see how lame that the
The
qualifications
yeah,
are.
like just the system itself.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Okay. And then I guess in terms of, and this is, I know this is traditionally a real estate podcast, and there's a real estate, there's a business tied to real estate. To acquire the house, you fix it to whatever, requirements need to happen for your patient care. And then how are you getting patients?
Okay, so in terms of getting patients, there's a couple of ways of doing it. They call it placement agencies, which is also they're called placement agencies. What happens is if they give you a client, they say, hey, I have a client looking for a house. Do you have an opening? And they send the family there, they do a tour, and if they like it and if they want to move in, they will take some between 50 to 100% of the first month's rent.
Gotcha. That's like their lease up fee if you had a property manager, basically.
Yeah.
Okay. So you have there's agencies that you work with, and then who ends up paying for their care and their rent, I guess you could say? Is
So
it
most of the residents that I take are all private pay. The reason why I opened it in this area too is because there's a lot of families that are high earners and would want mom and dad to stay closer to them so that and there's a higher elderly population in this area as well. So that's why it was a good fit. But to answer the question, the people who are paying for it are the families. It's not Medicare, it's not insurance, or if you have long-term care insurance. I don't know if you guys have heard that, but that's another thing that can pay for it as
Gotcha.
well.
Okay, interesting. All right, so in California, the requirements are probably not as strict as they should be. Unfortunately, everyone ages, right? And they always say that the two things guaranteed in life are taxes and death. And so unfortunately, we all get sicker and get older. So no matter what, you're going to need care. So there's just demand by human nature. What are some of what are the biggest challenges aside from if you can actually provide quality care, but like what are limitations of this type of industry?
I would say staffing would be the biggest challenge here because I can run the business. I'm not the one who's there caring for the residents 24/7. And if you have someone calling in sick, you don't have someone who can replace that person. It's either I have to go or we would just kind of have to stretch it out and have another person just do overtime but staffing would be the best
You don't have the
biggest.
same on-call backlog as a traditional hospital would to just go down the list of who can jump in.
Yeah, I do have some, but then it's a short list.
Yes. It's not like 100 deep versus like a traditional hospital could have. Gotcha. And then
I think that's the worst part.
and then I guess if you're a nurse, or do you have to be a nurse to be the caregiver?
No, you don't necessarily have to be a nurse.
But you have to have whatever the training is required in the licensing to be the caregiver. And then is the challenge with finding staffing, is that just because this person who is caring for the patients then ends up moving up into an RN position somewhere else? Is that what makes it hard?
I guess it's just the industry itself. It seems, in reality, there is money to be made in this industry, but it's also very challenging to find quality people who would want to do the job. If I can flip burgers and make the same amount of money, like In-N-Out's, In-N-Out's pay right now is about, what is it, like $22? If I could do the same thing and it's, it's hard to find people who have the heart for it and not just there for the paycheck because I feel like that's what's needed in this industry too. Like you have to be a certain type of person to be able to do it.
Oh, totally. This is care at the most critical time, at probably the most emotionally challenging time, both for the individual patient and for their families. So
Yeah.
it's like a blend of the hardest time altogether.
Yeah,
And that
definitely.
it's heavy.
It is. But for me, I feel super blessed because I have great staff. I've had them since I opened. They've been with me. I don't really do the day-to-day operations anymore. Of course, I'm still there. I still talk to the doctors, talk to the families when I need to. But my staff, they're really wonderful. They know what to do. They know what to report to me. So we have systems in place now, which is great.
Yeah, and I think if we're talking about the challenges and where to get into a business, obviously you want to lean into a competitive advantage. Stereotypically, Filipinos have a lot of nurses in the family and know a lot of nurses and or those who are in the same industry. And so as you're thinking about, okay, what is my competitive advantage? I'd say for Filipinos, this is one. I know a lot of Filipinos who have care facilities, especially in Hawaii. They're like all over Hawaii. And so it's interesting. But let's answer some of these questions that are on TikTok, because a lot of it's hard to actually get a sense of what's happening within a 30-second TikTok. So let's like rapid fire some of these. Okay, so zoning and permitting process, was that difficult for you?
No, so technically, if you only have 6 residents, you don't have to get a business license. This is for our city and maybe
Mm,
different for other cities, but we didn't have to get a business license, but we had to check in with the fire department
gotcha.
for safety, egress and exits and all that.
So interesting. It seems like it's so less regulated than having. We both have short-term rentals in the Joshua Tree area, and that has seemed like been a zoning nightmare.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay, liabilities. That was probably the biggest thing that I saw. What is the liability? Is that crazy? How do you protect yourself?
We have liability insurance for sure. We have to have that. But for me, it's just setting up expectations and goals for the families from the get-go. Doing the same thing with your caregivers, what your expectations are with them. And the other thing too that helped me out with liability is because we give out medications, the caregivers will give the med. We invested in like an electronic documentation system, so
Mm.
it's more streamlined, it's easier to understand, easier to read, and we're all on the same page. So that was another thing that I had to invest my time putting into them, training them and how to use it to lessen the liability too.
Yeah, the liability comment, regardless if it's this, Airbnbs, opening up a martial arts school or across a gym, which I did before too. I feel like that question, not that it's taken lightly, but that because it's such a big question, there's a million different answers to subsidize your risk. Not
Hmm.
minimize your risk.
Minimize, yeah.
And like I don't know, I was talking to a person last night about Airbnbs. Oh, what if someone steals something? I mean, that's
Like,
be part of it, but that's also why
yeah,
there's air cover and other insurance that you can get that'll replace it for you. And the same is you just dial down the systems, have the insurance, and it helps cover you.
yeah.
Okay. What about stress? Like on a scale from this is cruising on the beach to gosh, I am stressed. Where do you fall?
I'm probably on a 3 right
Yeah.
now in terms of running it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But
I
that's
mean,
because you now have built the systems. But when you were
yeah.
the owner operator, because at one point you were the owner operator, not just the owner,
Hmm.
you've now hired a
Hmm.
manager to manage the business. If you were the owner operator, how does that change?
When I was starting, yeah, it was up there, probably like a 7.
Gotcha.
But for me, the thing that brings me most stress is staffing. When
Mm.
someone calls in, someone's not happy, someone's complaining, that's what stresses me out. Maybe that's just me and my personal thing. But taking care of the patients, that just comes naturally for me. So it's not hard or stressful if you put it that way.
No, totally. It makes sense.
Yeah.
Everyone, of course, has different things that kind of poke at them. And staffing as a business owner is probably one of the craziest things. Okay. Talk about who pays for care, zoning. How about let's dive into, I don't know, just for fun. What were your quick thoughts, like seeing the TikTok? Anything,
Hmm.
I guess, when it first started blowing up, like what went through your mind?
At first, I was like, whoa, they might just think, especially when my friends and my family started seeing it and sending it over to me. I'm like, I didn't really want to disclose all that information. It might not, and it really might not seem that way. There's a lot to it in terms of how much you make, in terms like taxes and all these other things that we do as investors and that we know as a strategy aside from just our monthly cash flow that we use. That's in those numbers. But I was thinking, I think this will be good for people to understand or see this other side of real estate that they can do. And some people actually send me messages of, hey, I've been thinking about this, but it's been great that this was posted because then you're giving me so much to think about and something to pursue. So it's been good that at least we're talking about it, and people maybe knowing a little bit more about it. And I'm not a big fish. I'm not like, I think recently there was a podcast, a Bigger Pockets episode with, his daughter who does assisted living facilities as their main business as well. But you could see that you could just be like one small person or even a bigger person. It all that you could, if I could do it, you could do it too.
You know what's an interesting just thought that came to my mind now, just thinking about it, or as I'm thinking about this, is if you wanted to systematize and teach people how to do it, because there is so little information in it, I don't know, it could be an opportunity to help make the industry better, and no one else, or a very small amount of people, are actually leading the way, and there's so
Yeah.
much untouched in terms of modernizing it.
Knowing how much baby boomers are going to need care soon, then yeah, there's so much to capitalize on this
What's been your thought about
business.
on scaling? Have you thought about opening another assisted living facility? I know that you are looking at other investment types, and you have your short-term rentals, a house like
Mhm.
you do an Airstream that we haven't talked about yet either. Do you want more facilities?
I do. I actually, that was my goal for this year, was to get another assisted living facility because expenses will work better. Expenses will go down, your profits will go up if you
Mm.
have a second one. And in terms of staffing, it solves that problem too, because then you have more staff to just go around from one facility to the other. So that's still my goal. I still want to open up at least a second one for now. I just didn't think that was what I was supposed to focus on during COVID when there was a lot of uncertainty and a lot of
Mm.
problems in terms of staffing, people not going back to work. And I just thought I should pivot, but then still making sure that at one point when I'm able to, I'm going to go back to it. So next year, that's my goal, to get another one,
I
at
got a
least
fun
in the
question for you.
same.
If you can go back now 18 months and you paused on doing another assisted living and then you went short-term rentals instead, if you had the chance to go back and instead of doing the short-term rentals, do another assisted living facility, which would you do? Would you change it?
Just thinking
Go
about
ahead
it
and do it now.
now,
Just for fun. Just for fun. Just play
I
the game.
feel like I would. Like, if I was able to solve the problem with staffing, because that's what I'm afraid of. Like, I don't want to leave them and stress about it and say I'm out there on the beach. I wouldn't have that freedom of time if I
Mhm.
opened another one, knowing that I do not have enough staff. That's what I was afraid of. But to answer your question, probably would have opened an assisted living instead of a short-term rental. Because I
Interesting.
already have the systems in place. I feel like it's going to be an easier transition. But I'm like this person that I want to challenge myself again, learn something new, which I shouldn't be doing. Oh, let's do short-term rentals. Let's do this and let me figure it out. And then say, check that off my list. But no, that's not a good strategy, I think.
Okay. It's just fun to reflect and think about sometimes, and I like to ask those questions because it helps people put themselves in your mind, in your shoes, and okay, you've done these other things. How does it compare if you were, it's not apples to apples.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
just for fun. Okay, so speaking of other shiny objects, you bought 2 additional short-term rentals. You just recently closed on a house hack that you're probably gonna move into soon. Why the Airstream?
The Airstream, we bought that during COVID.
Okay.
There it is. So we had this during COVID. We have two little kids and we don't really have anywhere to go. And we're thinking if we buy an Airstream, and we have a friend who's renting out his Airstream, is doing pretty well. And so my thought there was if we could rent it out at least one rental a month, we're able to take this Airstream out for free to
Just one
give
time. Wow.
our family an experience. So yeah, that was the thought process behind that. Those are
That's
really old pictures, which you should update, but yeah, that's how it looks in there.
that's interesting just to give people context. So how much you buy it for? What's your monthly payment?
So I think it was 110,
So
and
$110,000.
that's for 20 years.
20, okay.
And our monthly is about maybe 640.
Okay, so 640 amortized over 20 years. Do you remember what the interest rate was?
It was probably in the fives.
Okay. And so 640, which means if you're charging $300 a night, do you also have a pricing software for this too, or you keep it?
No, outdoorsy doesn't have that. So it's a little more challenging for outdoorsy, but yeah, we just keep try to keep competitive with all the other other Airstreams out there. Yeah, if we rent it out $300 a night and we do a 3-night minimum, at least that one night is going to pay for the monthly
And have you
expenses.
gotten this since you've bought it? And how long have you had this?
We've had this or March of 2021, so a year.
Okay,
Over
a year and a half. And have you had your loan for this covered every single month?
Yeah, so during winter, there are really no bookings because we don't want to go through we have to winterize the pipes, and I just feel like that's a lot of work, but probably it isn't. So during winter, we don't have a lot of bookings and we just keep it in storage. And during the summer, there's more people who wants to take it out. And there's also like delivery fee. So if they would like the Airstream to be just there at their campsite already set up, we can deliver to, and that's an additional fee that we charge per mile.
And so for the most part, basically, obviously between low seasons and high seasons, you've at least covered your expenses.
Covered expenses for the year.
A way for your family to enjoy it when you want to enjoy it.
Yeah, but I feel like we didn't really make money for last year because we actually co-signed, is that what it's called? Co-signed it to another owner to take care of it for a little bit while we were busy with the kids and we were busy with other things. My husband couldn't do the day-to-day, so we had to co-sign it with someone else. And because of that, it slowed down because he was taking like Airbnb too. There's a co-host or property manager. There's 30% or 35% that he charges for. But at least it's still covered. We got to take it out. We have an experience for the kids and the kids love it. So still a win.
Yeah, totally. We got to upgrade your pictures though, Faye.
Yeah, I know we do.
That's the one thing. It's cute, it's fun, but that's the only thing I would say.
You definitely. I was looking at it too on the screen. I'm like, hey, because I don't manage that. Well, I don't want to put shade on my husband, but I don't manage that. My husband does. I do the Airbnb. He does the outdoorsy because it's too much things for me to worry about. The sewer and the thing. I don't understand any of that yet.
I want to get some double doubles on one of the counters on there with some fries. I like it. So what else are you guys working on now?
Right now, we actually just got our keys for the house that we bought. We're house hacking again. Woohoo! So we got our keys yesterday, and shout out to Irish and Steven and the David Green team. But that's what we're working on. We're going to work on that project and renovate that like ADU, put it up to code, get it renovated, and hopefully get some of the inside of the house renovated too for the lifestyle of our family. Because we have 2 kids. If you see this house, all the walls are painted purple.
Wow.
One room, and then the other room is all wallpapered with like 90s, 80s wallpaper.
So
we gotta update.
Where's this one? Is this in Concord as well?
It's in Concord as well, yeah.
So live in the main house and then rent out the ADU that's back there as a midterm rental or Airbnb? What's allowed?
As a midterm rental, that's the plan. We're actually maybe like less than 2 miles from the hospital. So we're hoping that that'd be a good thing. And then the other thing is we can park the Airstream in and make room for it in the side yard. And if we're not renting it out on outdoorsy, maybe we can short-term rent that. So that'll be another stream of income, but we'll see how that goes.
Okay. How much do you pay for RV storage right now?
For the RV storage, $100 a month.
Huh, not too bad. That's sweet. I like it.
Yeah.
Let's get into our last call. The last questions I want to ask you. What's a win? I guess you shared your win. You got the keys. What's a loss from this week?
A loss from this week. I guess the Airbnb. We haven't had a booking for this week to come in. We have one checking in today, but it's been slow. So I guess I could call that as a loss for this week. I got to work on my listing. I got to work on, I don't know. I got to look into it more.
Yeah.
And see what I could do to boost it up and get those bookings.
Okay, how about a fun one? What is the most memorable drink you've ever had, and what made it so memorable?
I was thinking, is it just the drink or is it the situation or the place or that? Hmm. Let me see. How about let me answer the one in. Okay, so we took a trip to Mexico last year, 2021. This was after we built the systems for the assisted living. This was when my daughter turned 1 and we were at the beach drinking a passion fruit margarita.
Okay.
And while I was at the beach, I was talking to a loan officer for this other deal that we were working on. And then I was checking on my staff, and I was at the beach drinking my drink and reading a real estate book. And I was like, I feel like I did something here. I feel like I am proud of myself in this very moment.
I like it.
And
That's,
pat on the back. Yeah.
that's fun. That's a fun story. Last question for you is, what are you looking for now, and how can someone add value to you?
What am I looking for now? So I know that I've been doing like shiny objects, trying to just take one, but I am also looking into getting into multifamily investing. And so looking for people that would be able to show me how that is, underwriting it, and just analyzing deals and just getting along with like-minded people to help grow and understand that better. I feel like that's where I'm at for now. Then that's what I'm looking for.
I like it. So if anyone wants to swap notes about assisted living facilities in exchange for some multifamily info, make sure to reach out to
Yeah.
Faye. Faye, where can people reach out to you at?
You already know that I'm not really good with social media. I only have 2 posts, which is I'm just a collaborator, which is the first post that I have is from you. And thanks for that. But they can reach me at Invest with Pay on Instagram. They can also, I think that's the best way to reach me. This is my resolution, and I'm trying my best to get to that. Maybe not by myself, but hiring someone else to help me with it. That's my goal. That's my next step.
Okay, fine. Well, if you want to connect with Faye, you can definitely shoot her a DM on Instagram. Maybe you can help her on Instagram. Maybe I can help her with Instagram. We'll see. And
Yes. If
Faye,
you're willing to, I know that you have so much on your plate. Is hey Josh, help me with my Instagram. But
I I
really,
want to say thanks so much for breaking down, demystifying what's on TikTok. So, for all those who want to learn a little bit more, make sure to reach out to Faye. And I hope you guys, I know that I learned a lot more about assisted care facilities than I ever knew before. So, it's a lot more than just the numbers. And you should never take anything on face value, put it that way.
yeah. I hope you guys learned something from this, and I hope I was able to share value. And reach out to me. I'm willing to help. I'm a bad texter. I don't reply as fast, but I will get to you. I
Sweet. I
promise.
like it. Thanks so much, Faye. Cheers for sharing.
Okay. Thanks. Cheers.
If you enjoyed that video and you found value, please share this with someone else who's interested in getting into real estate, but is also in the healthcare industry. And I'll see you guys in the next one.